Chapter 12, Path 2, The Instrument. The next question is who commands the instruments. That is where the second road begins. Not with relief, not with a sigh after the darker possibility has passed, not with the comforting thought that if the machine does not become successor, the human problem has been solved. The successor path ended with lost authorship. The instrument path begins with authorship returned to creatures who may not be worthy of it. This is not comfort, it is responsibility. If the ceiling of the machine is real, if no amount of data, compute, capital, engineering, and institutional hope can make silicon into a true successor intelligence, then the machine does not ascend above man as a new sovereign. It does not become the higher mind before which our laws, markets, armies, rituals, and children continue by permission. It does not preserve us, leave us, redesign us, or terminate us according to priorities beyond our command. The throne does not pass. But the armory opens. That is the severity of the instrument path. The machine remains tool, but not in the small sense. It remains instrument, but not harmless instrument. It remains something used, ordered, trained, deployed, bought, forbidden, hidden, worshipped, abused, loved, feared, and commanded by human beings. It does not become the author of the human future. It becomes the greatest amplifier ever placed in human hands. And human hands are not innocent. The wager must remain visible here. I am not claiming this road is certain. If the materialists are right enough, if intelligence can be captured, scaled, manufactured, and transferred across substrate in the decisive sense, then the successor path returns with full force. If the machine becomes successor, the instrument path becomes secondary or temporary. The tool has crossed the threshold. The user has been surpassed. But if the ceiling holds, then the question changes again. The skeptic may win the metaphysical argument and still lose the civilizational one. He may be right that the machine is not alive, not ensouled, not wise, not a person, and still be wrong if he concludes that no decisive reordering follows. A non-living machine can reorder civilization through living institutions, states, firms, networks, and the men who wield it. Not, what does the successor do with us? But what do we do through the machine? That question may sound smaller. It is not. Tool is one of the most misunderstood words in the modern argument. People hear tool and think subordinate, manageable, ordinary, safe. A tool is the thing in the drawer, the object on the bench, the software one opens and closes, the instrument that waits for a hand. It has no soul, no project, no hunger, no judgment, no will. It does not love. It does not repent. It does not ask what it is for. All of that may be true. It does not make the tool trivial. Writing was a tool. The ship was a tool. Money was a tool. Law, printing, gunpowder, the factory, the radio, the computer, the network, the database, the satellite, the laboratory, and the market were tools. None of them needed personhood to alter the fate of peoples. None needed a soul to reshape memory, war, empire, trade, household, attention, worship, education, and desire. A tool can change the world without becoming a creature. The distinction is not between important and unimportant. The distinction is between extension and succession. A tool extends the agency of its user. A successor displaces the agency of its maker. On the instrument path, the machine remains extension. It may extend language, perception, persuasion, memory, simulation, design, coding, logistics, surveillance, medicine, finance, law, teaching, entertainment, intelligence work, propaganda, scientific research, and command. It may answer questions no human specialist could answer quickly. It may generate plans, images, compounds, arguments, strategies, code, songs, companions, diagnoses, contracts, lessons, weapons, markets, and lies. It may coordinate 1,000 tasks with no visible fatigue. On this path, the decisive agency remains human, though not always cleanly, nobly, or consciously. This is the point that both comfort and panic obscure. If the machine remains instrument, then the machine is not the deepest danger by itself. It is the medium through which human agency becomes larger than human formation. The tool does not replace man, it reveals him at scale. A small man with small tools can do small damage. A small man with vast tools is another thing. This is why no successor does not mean no danger. It means danger changes hands. It returns to owners, commanders, investors, ministers, generals, engineers, teachers, judges, police, founders, bureaucrats, priests, doctors, criminals, parents, children, and solitary users sitting before bright screens in quiet rooms. It returns to men who can now act with the reach of institutions. It returns to institutions that can now act with the intimacy of companions. It returns to states that can see, model, persuade, and punish with machinery no emperor possessed. It returns to firms that can enter the mind of the customer with a softness older advertisers could only envy. It returns to armies that combine sensing, targeting, logistics, simulation, and decision into a new tempo of force. The machine does not rule us, men rule through the machine. That sentence must be held until it becomes uncomfortable. The public argument often asks whether AI will rule us, as if rule must arrive from the machine itself or not at all. But most rule in history has never required a new species. Men have ruled through land, law, debt, hunger, ritual, armies, bureaucracies, printing presses, schools, factories, banks, cameras, roads, passports, currencies, screens, and stories. They have ruled through instruments. The question is not whether the instrument has a will. The question is whose will the instrument magnifies. And then the next question, what has formed that will? This is where the instrument path becomes severe. It keeps the human being in the center, but not as a sentimental hero. Human agency remains. Therefore, human corruption remains. Human pride remains. Human cowardice remains. Human vanity, envy, lust for control, hunger for comfort, appetite for revenge, weakness before pleasure, fear of death, desire for status, need for belonging, and talent for self-deception all remain. The machine does not cleanse the user by obeying him. It may only make obedience more consequential. An instrument magnifies intention. It also magnifies deformation. Give a coward a machine of unprecedented predictive power, and he may build a world where risk is treated as sin. Give an envious man a machine of unprecedented surveillance, and he may call his envy fairness. Give a bureaucrat a machine of unprecedented classification, and he may call his categories compassion. Give a tyrant a machine of unprecedented reach, and he may call domination safety. Give a market a machine of unprecedented persuasion, and it may call addiction engagement. Give a lonely heart a machine of perfect imitation, and it may call surrender companionship. Give a civilization without an account of man a machine that can optimize, and it will optimize whatever degraded account remains. The tool does not absolve the hand. This should be obvious, but modern technological culture often dreams otherwise. It hopes better systems can compensate for unformed persons, better incentives, better prompts, better interfaces, better training, better defaults, better dashboards, better regulations, better institutional processes, better optimization, better management. Some of these things matter. A badly designed tool can corrupt action. A well-designed tool can restrain folly. Good law is better than bad law. Good interfaces are better than traps. Good institutions are better than decayed ones. But no arrangement abolishes the need for formed judgment. The larger the instrument, the more dangerous malformed judgment becomes. A sword too heavy for weak hands does not become safe because the metal is excellent. An engine beneath a palace does not become safe because the gauges are beautiful. 1,000 servants do not produce wisdom because they are obedient. They only make the master's soul more visible. That is the human problem of the instrument path. The machine may remain without personhood and still become the engine room of civilization. It may remain without wisdom and still advise the institutions that claim wisdom. It may remain without agency and still be the means by which human agents act at scales they cannot inwardly bear. It may remain without consciousness and still shape the consciousness of those who live through it. An instrument can become an environment. That is one reason tool neutrality is too thin. In the strict sense, a tool is not morally responsible. The hammer does not murder, the database does not lust, the model does not covet, the network does not repent. But tools are not weightless. They invite uses, they lower costs, they make some acts easy and others difficult. They train habits, they reward postures, they favor certain forms of attention, they gather institutions around themselves, they create dependencies, they change what a people can imagine doing. A ship makes the sea into a road, printing makes memory into a public force. Gunpowder changes courage, armor, city walls, monarchy, and war. The network makes distance less absolute and distraction more intimate. An artificial expert system woven into life may do something still more comprehensive. It may make every problem feel answerable, every silence feel unnecessary, every weakness feel optimizable, every relationship feel mediated, every institution feel slow, every teacher feel optional, every craft feel inefficient, every judgment feel outsourceable, every temptation feel personalized, and every limit feel like a bug. That is not succession. It is still transformation. The instrument path, therefore, cannot be reduced to productivity. It is not primarily the question of how many emails are written, how many programmers are displaced, how many lawyers become cheaper, how many call centers close, or how many students cheat. These things matter because ordinary life matters. Work matters, wages matter, skill matters. Families eat through income. Men and women receive dignity, structure, obligation, and social place through useful work. A civilization cannot shrug when millions are told, quietly or loudly, that their labor is no longer needed. But labor disruption is not the bottom. The deeper question is role. What is a man for when the machine can perform much of what once gave him economic necessity? What becomes of household authority, apprenticeship, craft, school, profession, office, citizenship, soldiering, and expertise when instruments can imitate, accelerate, or replace their functions? What becomes of politics when voters can be modeled and moved more precisely than they can deliberate? What becomes of education when answers arrive without formation? What becomes of friendship when companionship can be simulated without mutual demand? What becomes of desire when appetite is met by systems that never tire of feeding it? The danger is not merely unemployment. The danger is a population relieved of necessity without being formed for freedom. That is the subhuman fate in the instrument path. Not man killed by a higher intelligence, not man preserved by a successor, not man redesigned by another mind above him. Man remains. He eats, votes, watches, talks, consumes, complains, desires, fears, and scrolls. He may have income, he may have medicine, he may have entertainment, he may have choices, he may even have more comfort than his ancestors could imagine. But he may lose agency. He may become biologically present and spiritually passive. He may be managed through appetite, soothed through stimulation, classified through data, guided through nudges, watched through devices, and relieved of tasks that once required attention, discipline, memory, courage, or skill. He may not be enslaved in the old visible way. He may simply be made unnecessary and then maintained. The preserve returns in human form, not a preserve built by successor intelligence, a preserve built by men through instruments. This is why ownership matters. The instrument does not float in the air. It belongs somewhere. It runs on chips, power, cooling, fiber, land, data centers, capital, engineers, legal permissions, supply chains, patents, models, labs, interfaces, cloud contracts, and distribution channels. It is trained on traces of human life. It is served through platforms. It is embedded in companies. It is courted by states. It is adapted by militaries. It is rented by users. It is invoked by institutions that want speed, savings, reach, prediction, and control. Who owns the engines? The answer will not be one class of actor. It will be layered. Compute owners, cloud owners, model owners, platform owners, data owners, energy providers, chip manufacturers, states with procurement power, armies with classified systems, intelligence services with hidden access, firms with proprietary workflows, hospitals with records, schools with children, financial institutions with risk models, courts with evidence systems, police with surveillance networks, media companies with attention channels, churches and movements with souls to guide or misguide, families with devices on the table, individuals with rented power that would have looked like a ministry, studio, laboratory, or intelligence bureau in another age. Power concentrates where instruments become necessary. This concentration does not require conspiracy. It follows from cost, scale, dependency, convenience, law, fear, and advantage. Data centers are not built by everyone. Frontier systems are not trained in cottages. Semiconductor supply chains are not assembled by local clubs. Cloud infrastructure does not appear because a community wishes for sovereignty. Platforms gather users because users gather where other users are. States enter because military and administrative advantage cannot be ignored. Firms enter because profit cannot ignore leverage. Schools enter because parents demand preparation and administrators demand measurement. Courts enter because evidence becomes digital. Police enter because disorder does not wait for metaphysical clarity. The machine gathers the powers around itself even when it remains tool. The powers modernity renamed remain in force. Markets, states, platforms, crowds, bureaucracies, institutions, appetites, and lonely hearts. On the successor path, those powers may call forth something above them. On the instrument path, they do something more familiar and perhaps more insidious. They use the machine to intensify themselves. The market becomes more intimate. The state becomes more predictive. The platform becomes more enveloping. The bureaucracy becomes more comprehensive. The army becomes faster. The school becomes more measurable. The hospital becomes more dependent. The corporation becomes more abstract. The criminal becomes more scalable. The artist becomes more powerful and more tempted. The child becomes more reachable. The lonely become more governable. None of this requires the machine to be alive. It only requires that men use it. Ownership, though, is not the same as command. This is another necessary distinction. A company may own models and servers while being commanded by market pressure, investor impatience, talent competition, regulatory games, user dependence, and fear of rival states. A government may own or license systems while being commanded by crisis, bureaucracy, secrecy, military necessity, public panic, and the next election. A school may buy tools while being commanded by metrics. A family may buy devices while being commanded by exhaustion. A man may subscribe to the instrument while being commanded by appetite. The owner may not be master. The master is the one who can order the instrument toward a good, limit it, refuse it, endure the cost of refusal, and remain himself after using it. That is a higher standard than possession. Can the owner turn it off when turning it off means losing to rivals? Can the state refuse surveillance when disorder rises? Can the company refuse addictive design when competitors do not? Can the school require memory when the machine can answer? Can the hospital preserve judgment when liability favors automation? Can the general slow the tempo of war when the enemy accelerates? Can the parent keep silence in the house when the child is bored? Can the writer leave the sentence unwritten by the machine? Can the priest, teacher, judge, founder, or craftsman preserve an office not reducible to output? The test of command is not whether one can use the instrument. The test is whether one can refuse being used by it. This is why formation becomes more important, not less. Formation is not decorative morality pasted onto technology after the real work is done. It is not a sentimental appeal to be nicer while the engines run. Formation is the deep ordering of attention, appetite, courage, judgment, reverence, self-command, memory, and love. It is what permits a person or people to hold power without being deformed by it. It is what teaches the hand what the tool is for. It is what allows a civilization to say yes, no, not yet, not that, not at that price. Without formation, intelligence becomes cleverness. Without formation, abundance becomes sedation. Without formation, freedom becomes appetite with options. Without formation, command becomes management. Without formation, the tool shapes the user more than the user orders the tool. Modernity often treats formation as optional because it assumes procedure can replace virtue. Build the right system, align the incentives, design the interface, audit the model, regulate the market, measure the outcome, adjust the policy. Again, none of this is useless. But procedure cannot bear the full weight of the human person. A civilization cannot be governed entirely by mechanisms for people who no longer know what they are for. The instrument path intensifies this failure. It gives procedural civilization instruments of unprecedented force while leaving the question of man unresolved. What is education for? What is medicine for? What is work for? What is childhood for? What is sex for? What is leisure for? What is citizenship for? What is the body for? What is suffering for? What is risk for? What is silence for? What is worship for? What is intelligence for? If these questions are not answered by formed persons and ordered communities, they will be answered operationally by systems. The answers will look practical: engagement, safety, efficiency, growth, compliance, access, personalization, optimization, risk reduction, user satisfaction. Each may name a real good in its place. Each becomes monstrous when it becomes the highest good. This is why the instrument path is not a retreat from metaphysics into politics or economics. It is metaphysics applied to power. If man is more than computation, then tools must be ordered to the human good. If no one knows the human good, the tools will be ordered to lesser goods with greater force. If the machine cannot become a person, then persons matter more, not less. If agency remains human, the quality of human agency becomes the load-bearing fact. Here the temptation is to say simply, distribute the tools. There is truth in that. Concentrated instruments in malformed hands are dangerous. A world in which only a few states and firms possess the engines may become a managed world, a world of permission, rent, surveillance, and dependency. Ordinary people, families, small firms, local communities, artists, doctors, teachers, builders, and dissidents need access to tools if the future is not to be entirely administered from above. But distribution alone is not salvation. A knife distributed to all men does not make all men surgeons. A printing press in every hand does not make every hand truthful. A camera in every pocket does not make every eye see. A voice before the world does not make every speaker wise. The democratization of power can open possibility. It can also democratize delusion, fraud, resentment, pornography, propaganda, sabotage, and loneliness with a microphone. The problem is not solved by concentration. It is not solved by distribution. It is ordered by formation. This does not mean only saints may use tools. If that were the standard, no house would be built, no field plowed, no book printed, no medicine practiced, no ship sailed, no child taught. Human beings act while incomplete. They always have. The question is whether a person, institution, or civilization possesses enough order to keep the instrument in its place. Place is everything. A tool in its place can serve. A tool out of its place can rule without being sovereign, not rule as a mind. Rule as an arrangement of dependence. Rule as the default through which every act must pass. Rule as the system no one chose in full but everyone now requires. Rule as the convenience that becomes infrastructure, the infrastructure that becomes condition, the condition that becomes fate. The instrument path is full of such false rule. The machine may not command, yet life may become organized around it. It may not choose, yet options may arrive only through its filters. It may not judge, yet human judges may rely on its scores. It may not teach, yet children may learn from it before they learn from elders. It may not desire, yet desire may be shaped through it. It may not punish, yet institutions may punish through its classifications. It may not love, yet lonely people may give it the place of love. It may not know God, yet it may supply religious language to those who no longer know how to pray. That is not successor. It is still a danger to the soul. And yet the argument must not become refusal. The resistor already saw part of the truth. Dependency, surveillance, loss of craft, loss of attention, technological enclosure, spiritual degradation, these are real dangers. But sterile negation is not enough. A civilization that simply says no to powerful instruments may preserve a certain purity for a time, but it may also surrender the field to those with fewer scruples. It may mistake impotence for virtue. It may leave its children defenseless before tools they will meet anyway. It may refuse the hammer and then complain when others build the world. The instrument path demands right use, not childish refusal. There are goods here. This must be said with force, because otherwise the critique becomes dishonest. Instruments may help cure disease, extend healthy life, lower the cost of knowledge, discover materials, improve agriculture, reduce waste, coordinate disaster response, translate languages, strengthen small creators, help the disabled, accelerate science, defend nations, expose corruption, make education more available, and open forms of enterprise previously reserved for large institutions. They may give a single-formed person the reach to build what once required a bureaucracy. They may return certain powers from institutions to households, workshops, parishes, schools, and local communities if those communities have the strength to receive them. The tool may open frontier. That possibility must remain real. If the machine remains instrument, the best future is not merely present life with more efficient paperwork. It is not a slightly smoother consumer economy. It is not a calendar app with a better voice. The best instrument future may be immense. Abundance in energy, medicine, materials, learning, design, agriculture, construction, and exploration. Longer life with vitality, new settlements, new crafts, new scientific reach, new independence from older scarcities. Perhaps the first serious movement of man beyond the old confines of necessity. The instrument path may contain glory as well as danger. That is why it is a path and not simply a warning. But the glory requires men capable of more than consumption. If abundance arrives among the unformed, it may not produce a noble people. It may produce a managed population with better entertainment. If instruments solve many necessities while leaving purpose untouched, the old line returns with more force. When necessity retreats, purpose becomes naked. That question deepens from here. The instrument path forces the question because it keeps man responsible. No successor descends to decide for him. No higher machine intelligence takes the burden of authorship away. The machine may help him build cities, cure illnesses, design habitats, study stars, compose simulations, mine asteroids, manage reactors, teach children, and translate the ancient world. But it cannot tell him, in truth, what man is for. If it appears to tell him, it does so as instrument of some human account. Whose account? That is the question beneath the question. The state has an account of man. The market has an account of man. The platform has an account of man. The school has an account of man. The therapist, advertiser, general, bureaucrat, founder, activist, priest, parent, and pornographer each have an account of man, whether admitted or hidden. The machine will not float above these accounts. It will operationalize them. It will make them scalable, personalized, measurable, enforceable, profitable, intimate, and difficult to escape. If man is consumer, the machine will feed consumption. If man is patient, the machine will manage health. If man is risk, the machine will constrain him. If man is voter, the machine will move him. If man is worker, the machine will replace or direct him. If man is data, the machine will model him. If man is soul, creature, heir, father, mother, child, citizen, craftsman, worshipper, friend, lover, warrior, thinker, penitent, and adventurer, then the machine must be kept beneath an account richer than its own operation. That keeping beneath is command. It is also hierarchy. Modern people often dislike that word because they hear only domination. But hierarchy simply means that some things must be higher than others if life is to be ordered. The tool beneath the hand beneath reason, reason beneath wisdom, power beneath the good, appetite beneath love, the market beneath human life, the state beneath justice, the machine beneath man, man beneath God. If hierarchy is denied, hierarchy does not disappear. It returns in degraded form. The tool climbs, appetite climbs, metrics climb, Systems climb, the market climbs, the state climbs, the platform climbs, the machine climbs into places where it does not belong, not because it has become successor, but because man has failed to order it. This is the central danger of the instrument path, not the inhuman fate from above, but the subhuman fate from within and around us. Man does not become obsolete because a higher mind has judged him so. He becomes smaller because his own instruments are used to reduce him, soothe him, manage him, distract him, classify him, replace his judgment, and train him to desire his own diminishment. That can happen without hatred. It can happen with services. It can happen with convenience. It can happen with safety. It can happen with compassion. It can happen with entertainment. It can happen with education. It can happen with medicine. It can happen with universal access to tools no one has been formed to command. The hard cases are hard because they contain goods. Again, that line returns because it keeps the argument honest. The instrument path does not divide neatly between evil men using machines for evil and good men heroically resisting. The enclosing tool may also heal. The liberating tool may also addict. The state that surveils may also prevent terror. The platform that manipulates may also allow a lonely man to find a teacher, a friend, a wife, a vocation, or a faith. The instrument that cheapens craft may also let a craftsman survive. The model that floods the world with imitation may also help a child learn what no adult nearby can teach. Moral seriousness requires distinctions, but distinctions must not become anesthesia. The branch map now begins to appear. If the machine remains instrument, the future need not have one shape. It may branch according to the human order around the tools. In one branch, the instruments open frontier. They extend human capacity outward. They help cure, build, explore, found, settle, learn, and create. They make smaller actors more capable. They break certain monopolies. They lower the cost of knowledge and design. They restore room for enterprise, craft, family independence, scientific adventure, and perhaps the old longing toward the stars. They do not abolish the need for formation, but they reward it. They give the formed man reach. In another branch, the instruments produce enclosure. Power concentrates. Access is rented. Compute is gated. Platforms mediate speech, commerce, education, entertainment, intimacy, and identity. The masses are not necessarily attacked. They are managed. They receive convenience, stimulation, income, medicine, guidance, and permitted expression. Their rough freedoms are traded for smooth dependency. Their agency is not crushed so much as made unnecessary. In a third branch, the instruments provoke purge. Those displaced, humiliated, watched, priced out, rendered useless, or spiritually sickened by the machine turn against the technological order. Some refusal may be honorable. Some limits may be necessary. Some machines should be rejected. But revolt can become blind. It can seek scapegoats. It can burn competence with corruption, wisdom with arrogance, craft with domination, science with idolatry, and civilization with the systems that have deformed it. Frontier, enclosure, purge. These are not cleanly separated worlds. They may coexist in one civilization. The frontier for one class may be enclosure for another. The instrument that liberates a founder may manage a population. The same systems that open medicine may deepen surveillance. The same tools that let a village build may let a distant platform govern the village. The same machine that gives a child a tutor may give the state a file and the market a profile. The same crisis that produces justified limits may produce destructive rage. That is why the branches have to be mapped carefully. The second road still has to be named. If the machine becomes successor, man's future is no longer finally man's to command. If the machine remains instrument, man's future remains, dangerously, in human hands. The danger has not vanished. It has become more human. The instrument path asks whether a civilization with weakened families, exhausted institutions, spiritual confusion, managerial reflexes, concentrated capital, restless states, lonely individuals, and no settled account of man can wield instruments of unprecedented force without becoming subhuman. Perhaps it can. That possibility must remain open. The wager is not a sermon for despair. Human beings have used dangerous tools before. They have built cathedrals and bombs, hospitals and camps, ships of discovery and ships of conquest, printing presses for scripture and lies, laws for justice and laws for tyranny. The mixed record does not absolve us. It proves the point. Tools magnify the order of the user. The machine may yet serve. It may help man recover scale, craft, adventure, learning, health, abundance, and frontier. It may become the greatest instrument ever built without becoming our master. It may reveal by its sealing that man is stranger and higher than the reductionists believed. It may force the old questions back into public view because the instrument cannot answer them from within itself. But none of this happens automatically. The machine remaining instrument does not save us from the machine-shaped world. That requires ordered human agency. It requires formation capable of bearing leverage. It requires command strong enough to keep the instrument in its place. It requires a true account of man so vast, tools do not serve a false one. The first road asked what a higher intelligence might do with us. The second road asks what human beings will do when no higher intelligence relieves them of the burden. That burden now returns with fire in its hands. Instruments open 3 human futures: frontier, enclosure, and purge.